It's funny how, like, we obsess over uh, plot twists, character arcs, all that stuff in movies,
Right.
but you rarely stop to think about those first few minutes
Yeah.
that really set everything in motion.
It's true. Those opening scenes, it's like the filmmaker's kind of secret handshake with the audience, right?
Ooh, I like that.
They're laying the groundwork, often in really subtle ways, for everything that follows.
Okay, so let's unpack that then.
Hmm.
Studio Binder talks about techniques like in medias res,
Right.
and I'll admit that one always sounded a bit intimidating to me,
Sure.
like something you'd study in a film theory class or something.
It sounds very fancy, but it's really actually quite straightforward.
Okay.
In medias res just means in the midst of things.
Okay.
Think of it like being dropped into a movie already in progress.
So like that heart-stopping sequence in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol,
Exactly.
where you're just like plunged right into the action with zero context.
Yeah, and that disorientation that you feel, that scramble to try to make sense of what's happening,
Yeah.
that's all part of the design.
Wow.
It's creating this instant suspense, forces you to become an active viewer trying to piece together the narrative.
It's so effective because it plays on like our natural curiosity.
Yes.
Don't you think like you have to know what led to that moment, how it's all going to play out?
Precisely. And sometimes that opening action sequence, even without any dialogue,
Yeah.
can reveal character.
Remember the Skyfall opening?
Bond on a mission,
Yes.
chasing across the rooftops.
Breathtaking.
And then that
Yeah.
shot on the train, just wow. Pure spectacle for sure, but it's M's order to take the shot.
Yes.
That really resonates. Because on the surface,
Yeah.
it seems like a very straightforward command.
Right.
But knowing how the film unfolds, that line becomes loaded with meaning, foreshadowing M's own sacrifices and the ethical dilemmas that Bond will face.
You're right. It's so subtle, but it just adds like a whole other layer to the scene.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing how much weight those early moments can carry.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have films like Marriage Story, where the opening is much quieter, more intimate. Right.
And yet just as impactful, if not more so.
Right.
Instead of adrenaline, Marriage Story uses those opening home videos to establish a deep sense of love
Yes.
and connection between the characters.
You feel like you're getting this glimpse into their most cherished memories.
Exactly, and that makes their eventual breakup, the unraveling of that love story, all the more heartbreaking.
Right.
It's a brilliant use of contrast to heighten the emotional impact.
Whereas Marriage Story uses this opening to pull us into this relationship, some films use those first few minutes to completely mislead us,
Yes.
like with that red herring technique that Studio Binder mentioned.
The art of misdirection.
Yes.
Shutter Island is a masterclass in this.
Because you go in thinking it's a very straightforward mystery.
Exactly. You're led down one path, you're completely engrossed in this case,
Mm-hmm.
only to discover in the third act that everything you thought you knew was wrong.
And it makes you want to rewatch it immediately just to see how all those early scenes, those seemingly insignificant details, were hinting at the truth all along.
It's like the filmmakers playing a game of chess with your expectations.
Speaking of playing with our minds, Studio Binder also talks about how these techniques can be layered on top of each other.
Oh, absolutely.
And they use Pulp Fiction as the example, right?
Yes. That's a perfect example of how a film can be both in medias res and a flash forward all within the first few minutes.
Oh.
It's disorienting, it's exhilarating, keeps you
Exhilarating.
constantly on edge.
Tarantino's a master of that.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about how these openings grab our attention.
Right.
They kind of mess with our expectations. But on a deeper level, what are filmmakers trying to achieve? What's the bigger picture here?
Our German film lexicon source puts it perfectly. It's about setting the tone.
Okay.
Think of it like the mood lighting for the entire film. The music, the visuals, the pacing, they all work together to create this specific atmosphere, this feeling that will permeate everything that follows.
It's like the first few notes of a song.
Exactly.
Give you a sense of what's to come, set the mood, create anticipation.
Take La La Land, for example.
Okay.
That vibrant, energetic opening musical number
Oh, yeah.
could totally stand on its own.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But it's also this brilliant contrast to the harsh realities of what it actually means to be a struggling artist in LA,
Yeah.
which is what the film is really about. That juxtaposition between the fantasy of that opening number
Yeah.
and the grounded reality of the characters' lives, it instantly clues you into the film's bittersweet tone.
It's amazing how much information can be conveyed in such a short amount of time.
Absolutely. And then you have films like Get Out, which masterfully blends genres right from the start.
Okay.
You're laughing one minute, you're terrified the next,
Yeah.
and the whole time there's this undercurrent of social commentary.
Right.
It's unsettling, but it's brilliantly effective.
Makes you realize how much thought intentionality goes into crafting those first few minutes.
Absolutely. And speaking of intentionality, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about those scenes that appear
Okay.
before the opening credits even roll.
You mean cold opens?
Yes. They're a staple of television,
Mm-hmm.
but they also pop up in films, often to even greater effect.
We're talking like that montage in Up. I mean, come on.
Oh my gosh.
I dare you to find someone who doesn't tear up during that.
Right. Devastating, but it also encapsulates, like, the heart of the entire film.
Yeah.
Love, loss, those unexpected adventures that life throws our way, but that's the power, right,
Yeah.
of a well-crafted cold open. And our sources, especially that Wikipedia deep dive, highlighted just how common they are.
Yeah.
From the iconic Law and Order clang
Right.
to those adrenaline-pumping James Bond pre-title sequences.
Yes.
It just adds a whole other dimension.
It's true. I never really thought about how Saturday Night Live uses them too.
Right.
Just setting that comedic tone right off the bat, but it makes sense.
Totally.
It's like this sneak peek that promises a certain vibe, whether it's drama, action, or just getting ready to laugh.
Exactly. And while cold opens in TV shows, they often serve to just, grab your attention right before a commercial break.
Right.
They can do so much more
Okay.
than just keep us on the edge of our seats. Okay.
They can foreshadow events. They can introduce characters in really memorable ways.
Yeah.
Or even establish like a theme that runs throughout the entire story.
So it's not just about that immediate wow factor. It's about those subtle connections
Yeah.
that might not even click until later in the film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about those classic James Bond cold opens.
Okay.
They're not just there to showcase incredible stunts, although
Which they do.
they certainly do that.
Yeah.
But they often contain clues about, like, the villain's plan,
Right.
Bond's emotional state, or the really high stakes that he's going to be facing in the main plot.
It's like the filmmakers are giving you a little taste of what's to come,
Yes.
but in a way that leaves you wanting more.
A little appetizer.
It's like a delicious appetizer before the main course.
Love that analogy.
Right. And just like a good appetizer, a cold open should leave you wanting more.
Yes.
Piquing your curiosity and setting the stage for, hopefully, a very satisfying cinematic experience.
This whole conversation has got me thinking about how I experience movies.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to those opening moments from now on.
I think that's one of the most rewarding things about, studying film.
All right.
Even casually like this, you start to understand the tools, the techniques that filmmakers use.
Right.
It just adds a whole new layer of appreciation.
It's like you're in on the secret, like you're seeing the artistry and the intention
Yeah.
behind every shot, every cut.
Absolutely.
But what about when those techniques combine? Like, could you have a cold open that's also, say, a flashback?
Absolutely. Some of the most captivating openings use a blend of these different techniques
Okay.
to create a really unique experience.
Ooh, I'd love to hear an example. What film comes to mind when you think about that kind of masterful layering?
Well, if you're looking for a film that masterfully blends multiple techniques, I would highly recommend checking out 12 Monkeys.
Okay.
It's this very mind-bending thriller that starts with a dream.
Ooh, already intrigued.
And dreams can be such fertile ground for filmmakers, right?
Great.
And in 12 Monkeys, that dream quickly morphs into a flashback,
Okay.
then a flash forward,
Wow.
seamlessly weaving together different timelines and realities. It's disorienting,
Yeah.
but in a way that pulls you deeper into the protagonist's kind of fractured mental state.
Ooh, I'm adding that to my watch list as we speak.
There you go.
I love how these deep dives always give me something new to think about. It's making me realize that those first few minutes of a film are often so much more than just an introduction.
They can be a microcosm of the entire film, this concentrated dose of its themes, its style, its emotional impact.
It's really incredible how much thought and strategy goes into those opening moments. It makes you appreciate the art of filmmaking on a whole other level.
Absolutely. And speaking of appreciating the art of filmmaking,
It's really amazing how those opening scenes, like whether they're before the credits or after the credits, can like completely change how you experience a film.
absolutely.
You give me so much to think about.
It's like you're cracking the code of visual storytelling, right?
Right.
But all these techniques that we've talked about, they're just tools in a
Yeah.
filmmaker's toolbox.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not just about being flashy or shocking for the sake of it. Those opening moments need to serve a purpose.
They have to. Like a good opening, whether it's a single scene or like a really cleverly edited sequence,
Right.
it should, one, draw you in immediately.
Yeah.
Two, establish the tone.
Okay.
And three, it should hint at some of the deeper themes or conflicts that are actually going to drive the story.
Now that you mention it, some of my favorite movie openings are surprisingly subtle.
Right.
They're not about explosions or car chases, but they still manage to create this really unforgettable atmosphere.
Sometimes the quietest openings pack the biggest punch.
Yeah.
It's about creating a mood and atmosphere that really lingers with you long after the film is over.
So if we had to boil it down, what's the one big takeaway that you want our listeners to remember about these cinematic openings?
Those first few minutes are never an accident.
Okay.
They are very deliberate choices
Right.
made by the filmmakers to guide your experience, to shape your understanding of everything that's to come.
It's like a puzzle.
It is.
And they're giving us the first few pieces.
Exactly.
So next time I watch a movie, I'm going to be really paying attention to those opening moments.
I hope you do.
And maybe I'll even impress my friends with my newfound film analysis skills.
I have no doubt.
This has been great. Thanks for doing this deep dive with me.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk film.